everybody, welcome to number 27. I'm Jack, and today I am in a Lancia Fulvia, the last real Lancia, and that's no gimmick. It really was the last Lancia that was sold before Fiat took over. Now, in truth, the car that I am in at the moment, which is a Series 2, was produced when it was already in Fiat hands, and they had a couple of little influences on it, but not very much. So it is still pretty much the original fantastic design. Now, one of the incredible things about this car, and I'll tell you more about that later, but you would never say that it was more expensive than an E-Type when it was being sold, but in actual fact it was. And that is because these Lancias, like all the Lancias before, were a lot more than the sum of their parts. With most cars, what you see is what you get. With a Lancia, what is going on underneath is part of the reason why they used to be so expensive, and why ultimately the firm went bankrupt and had to be taken over by Fiat. Now, I have always hankered after a Fulvia, but for whatever reason, I don't know why, it's just never quite worked out. When I had the money and I was on the lookout, I ended up buying a different car. I bought a 105 series because there was a good one around. When I found a good Fulvia, I wasn't really in a position to buy. Couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I did a test on a Series 1 Fulvia, comparing it, because I was madly thinking as a daily of having that instead of my BMW 1 Series, but obviously there was no way that that was going to work, and that Series 1, although fairly priced, was pretty worn, so it wasn't for me. Now, this car, Tony, who brought the Europa, that you should by now probably already have seen in one of the videos, also mentioned he had a couple of Fulvias, because I love them so much. I said, oh, would you please bring one down? And he has. So this is the second car from the same viewer. Thanks so much, Tony. It is massively appreciated. But what makes these Fulvias so special? Well, first of all, for me, there's something about the design. I mean, they are pretty, but it's a delicacy about it. It's just it's incredibly classy. The design generally, but also the interior and the details and the engineering that goes on underneath everything that you're seeing. It's just so cohesive. They are just incredible little jewels of cars. I think they are currently the bargains of the century. You could get a decent one for about £15,000. If you look at competitor of the time, which is the Alfa 105 series, the coupe version, they did a Junior 1300, so that's the same engine size as this. And those go for about double, at least £30,000. You could argue the engineering's pretty good for the time on those as well, but I don't know. Well, they're different cars, really. But this is a very special thing. It has a V4 engine, very narrow angle V4. Lancia had a history of using those. And in this car, one of the shocking things at the time, for a car that was so expensive and so top end, was that for this car, it was front wheel drive, which is just, to us, it seems like a bad thing. But don't forget, in the early 60s, front-wheel drive was a really new, fancy thing. And maybe perhaps that's why they went with it. But having the V4 engine had the fantastic sort of benefit that it was quite short. So because the engine on this car sits ahead of the axle, it's important that the weight is as far back as possible. So having that V4 configuration, as well as it being really different, helps. So while we're in it, how does it drive? Well, the driving position I do find a bit tricky myself, I have to say. If I was ever to own one of these, I'd have to really consider that, because it is the epitome of Italian short leg, long arms. And normally, in most Italian cars, that doesn't particularly bother me. I can make it work. But I have to say, in this, at the moment, I'm finding it a little bit difficult to get used to. The interior is just fabulous and is one of the things that I really love about these. It's just got such class. The detailing, the sort of switch gear. The first cars had even nicer switch gear on the left, the steering wheel, but the rest is very similar here, and it is just lovely. The attention to detail. These doors, the way they open the little door catchers, so solid, so delicate. The catch on the boot, all that stuff is just the seats on these and the detailing around them. There's just an incredible air of quality. No wonder they couldn't make any money on these, even though they were so expensive. It's because they were led by quality, not by profit. Sadly, that's what ended up taking Lancia down. But oh my God, these are just incredible bargains. The steering is nice and light, and it's got a really lovely, neutral, natural feeling turn-in. Quite slow rack, but that's okay. That seems to work. And the whole car just feels so together. I'm flabbergasted, because actually in some of the detailing of these, you'd think, but that sounds quite ancient. So at the front, it's got independent suspension, but it's got a leaf spring. At the back, it's got a solid axle with a panhard rod for location. And then leaf springs again. So you'd think, oh, this will feel a bit bumpy, or it'll feel a bit crappy on a road like this, like an MG would. But in actual fact, it doesn't. Now you'd think, okay, it's a 1.3, so maybe that's not so appealing, but it manages to pump out about 90 horsepower, which back in the day from a 1.3 was really rather good. So by comparison, the Escort, God, they're good fun in the corners. The Escort, the first Escort, the GT, no, not S, yeah, the first Escort, the GT, which was a 1.3, which had a tuned crossflow, only had 63 horsepower. The Alpha, the competitor for this, had 88, so very close. But it meant that you had an 0 to 60 of about 11 seconds, which isn't bad for a car like this at the time, and over 100 miles an hour top speed. Let's just do the usual little pull through the gears, and I'll tell you how it feels, and we can have a listen to how the engine sounds, hopefully. Oh. Now it's got a 5-speed gearbox, but that is this Series 2. The Series 1's had a 4-speed, which they say is a bit nicer to use. So the little V4 is really, really eager. You wouldn't call this fast, it absolutely isn't, but the engine is eager, willing to work with you. It's responsive to the throttle. The gearbox is nice and smooth, works quite well really with the rest of the car. It's maybe a little bit long for my liking ideally. I'd be interested to try Series 1 and see if that is significantly better. But it's so together, this little car. So much better than you think it will be. And although the roads are a bit grimy, so it went a little bit wide there, it's got more grip than you think it should have. And it handles the road so well. It feels like a sophisticated car. So I can kind of see where all that money went. The problem was, being such a small car as well, small engine, it was a pretty hard sell at the time. Despite that, they did sell from 1963 to 1976, I think. That was a Series 3. Eventually they had the engine was taken out to 1600, I think. But they are little jewels, these cars. They really are fantastic. Now, another really strange feature about the Fulvia is that the engine isn't straight in at the front. It's canted at 45 degrees, and that was for a couple of reasons, really. First of all, it allowed a much lower bonnet line, but perhaps more importantly, it lowered the center of gravity. So again, it's an example of Lancia doing above and beyond, always doing what is absolutely best in terms of the car, not necessarily what was best in terms of sales or of marketing. Everything they did seemed to incur expense. All the fixings that were used, especially on the Series 1s, the screws, the bolts, all that stuff was aircraft quality. The first thing that Fiat did when they came in, they went back and used, they weren't bad actually, but they used standard quality car fixings. It's one of the things that they could change. They changed the grille, it was no longer metal, it went to plastic. Some of the badges were changed. But really, it is so impressive. The brakes, the lever has a little bit of travel on it, but it's pretty, once it bites, it's nice, and the pedal does go hard, does give you some feel. So brakes feel good and pretty strong. It's quite well controlled as well. It doesn't lean too much, obviously, because there's not that much grip today with the way the road is. Maybe when the road is dry, get some heat into the tyres, you might be able to get a bit more roll, but it seems pretty well controlled. I think this is one of those cars which you have to spend a bit of time with to really appreciate and get the most of it. Already I can see that as the day has gone on, I have liked it more and more and more. I've started to sync with it, and I've just started to, there's just something that really gets under your skin about these. I'm really, I'm going to have to buy one at some point. I absolutely will, because they are just little engineering marvels. At first you get in and you think, okay, well, it's not that quick. There's nothing that remarkable about it. But as you keep driving it, it just starts to feel a little bit different. It feels very well. Everything is just right. The weighing of the controls is right. It feels like quality. The way it feels on the road, the way it handles the bumps. These are great little things. I really adore this little car, and it is something, it is a car that is on my radar. So I'm going to have to buy one sooner rather than later. I don't have too many cars at the moment, so perhaps, I don't know, perhaps now is the time. Who knows? Anyway. Don't dismiss these. I think they are an absolute bargain. I don't know if there is such a thing as a good classic car investment now. I think the days where classic cars are just going to keep going up and up. I think those days are over, really. But all the same, I think if there is a bargain, this one is it. The values just haven't really changed very much in the last few years. They've always been around sort of 10 to 15 to 20, depending on the model and the range. And I mean, think of what you can get for 15,000, and then look at this. I think it is an absolute bargain. If you have a car that you want me to review, please get in touch. Let me know what you think. Should I get one of these? What do you think of the Fulvias? What's a worthy sort of classic that you can do? You can buy for 15,000 that compares well to one of these. And if you have one, get in touch with me or anything else of interest, and perhaps we can do a video. Instagram is the best way to get in touch with me for sort of video requests. Thank you all so much, and I really look forward to seeing you for the next video.
What the hell are you